Hi.
All right, we're here for the Ask Me Anything. Hi, Sarah. Oh my God, I'm so texted you at the last minute.
I never remember to turn my audio on.
What?
I never remember to turn my audio or video on, so it's always just blank.
Oh my gosh, hi. It's been forever. What a treat. Oh my gosh, this is just, all of this is making my day. But first, it has been so hot here. And today it's a little bit chilly. It's only 90. I know, it's crazy. But I'm so excited because it started out the day raining and I'm wearing socks.
Wow.
So I'm getting some socks on. It feels like winter. It's 90 degrees, right, Josie? You're in Houston.
I'm in England.
It still feels like summer.
It's hot as fuck. I don't know what I'm doing. It's just because our house is cold. That's really all. Tammy, hi. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm so good. This is such a treat. Thanks everybody for being here. And don't worry about that other version of me that's down there. That's actually Derek.
Oh,
And we're gonna, oh, oh, I love you, honey. Okay, so that actually, I was thinking about it. I was like, well, that just leads me into the perfect place to start coaching. So right before, like 10 minutes before this call was to start, and I'll introduce myself in just a minute. I just realized like I've done no kind of intro. And the dogs are coming. Barney's here. Is that I really like a little bit of drama. Like I like a little bit of like, oh my gosh, are we gonna like pull it together? Are we gonna get there on time? Like, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like a little bit of the rush, right? And I don't have much of it. Like I have a really nice life. I have a nice marriage. I have great kids. I mean, they're bonkers. But like, I don't have a lot to get like real worked up about. So the way that I do it, and this is the coaching starts now, the way that I'll do it is I just did it. I said, hey, I'm going to go meditate right before I start this coaching class, because that's how I prepare for coaching. But what's so funny is that like I got it right up until 11:59, right? Not a lot of wiggle room, not a lot of like sitting and collecting yourself at the desk. Like I like to run in here, like my hair's on fire, and Derek is freaking out. He's like, Anna, and I kind of like it. You guys know what I'm talking about?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just say that because we will find ways to do it in our life, whether you have it or not. Like we will create those, it's, neuroplasticity, if you want to get into the science of it, but like we'll find ways to like go to the pathways that are familiar for us. And I'm pretty familiar with like the feast or famine. Like I like it like really, really bad or really, really good. I don't live a lot in the middle, right? And so I find myself a lot in the middle lately. And so I do dumb things like wait until the last minute to go get our kid at school. And then I'm like racing. And then I got pulled over for running a stop sign. And like, like I'm a bandit, like I'm a fucking bank robber. Like what, like, yeah. Except I say this and I'm outing myself because like we find ways to do these things in our life, whether if they're not there, we'll create it. And that's my point, is that like, there I went creating it. So before we get started with your questions, and I have been getting questions from people all morning long, so I want to keep this to an hour. So I've got to be mindful of everything that's been coming in. But I'm Anna K. Morris. I know Sarah and Tammy and Josie. We have a few more people that I think might be joining us. But if they don't, this is getting recorded. So you don't need to try to remember what I'm saying. And Sarah, I can see you with the pen ready to take notes like a very good student. That's, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to. All you really need to do is just be here right now. That's why I am also a recovering good student, and I've stopped preparing for okay, Crystal's on Facebook Live, Derek's sending me messages. I've stopped in the last year, I stopped like preparing for coaching calls because all you really need is for somebody to really listen. Because a lot of what we're saying out there is not the thing. I have to be the one to listen underneath what you're saying. Does that make sense? Like we're slamming around like we're mad that somebody didn't put the dishes away. It's not really about the dishes, is it? Right? It's about like not feeling respected, usually. You know, that's just one example that pops up in my life. So that all being said, I am Anna, and I'm here to be your guide for the next hour in the Ask Me Anything coaching series that I just started and loved, and it came kind of out of nowhere. And I realized that that's really broad, but if you don't know me, there's one aspect that I think is really important, and it's why I don't coach in like a specific arena. Like I have friends who are like, you know, health and fertility coaches, or like I have a friend who's a sex coach. I have a friend who's like a dating coach. I don't coach in any one area of life because I believe that it's all the perspective that you're looking at life through. So as you shift the perspective that you're looking at your life through, everything in your life changes. So it's not about, you know, Tammy, you'd message me. It's not necessarily about like the business and your husband and like, how do I keep all the balls in the air and all the juggling, right? It's that you see it as a juggle. That's actually the thing to look at rather than all the different areas, because we're so quick to like compartmentalize when it's really the perception that's creating our reality. So I coach from a place of like, as you look inside the whole world around you outside, well, it might not be changing, it changes. So we're quick to say like, oh, I'm doing all this work, but my husband isn't, or my girlfriend isn't, or my kids aren't. How are they going to change? As you shift your own energy, everything occurs differently for you. And as a result, they change too. So that's where the real magic is. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining. So I want to dive in with a question that I got, and then I'm going to jump to you, Tammy, if that's okay. Does that sound good? Okay, good. So this is a really great question that I got from a client of mine, and I'll just read what she wrote. I was going through old photographs, which I love. Like, how fun is that? Or painful, depending on what you're looking at, right? From 20 years ago, and I ran across my business plan and idea. Ooh, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I didn't follow my inner voice. Why do we set up roadblocks for ourselves? Can anyone relate to that? Yeah, okay. So here's the short of it. We at some point made a decision that life is hard. You have to struggle. You're not worth XYZ, whatever it is that you want. And you go around finding a bunch of evidence to support your story, rather than looking at it from, I wonder if that's really true. And I wonder if there's evidence to prove that it's not. So the thing that I coach constantly, daily is journaling, because that's where you get to play around with. So I had this business idea 20 years ago, and I really knew that little voice. And I wonder why I put that roadblock there. Did something happen? And you get to actually like go back in your life like a treasure hunt and see what something usually happened, right? I will speak from my experience with Derek, which Dee, if you wanna hop on here, this would be a really great place to hop on. When we first got together, I really wanted him to quit his job and start something with me and go and travel around the world. But really it was like, I wanted him to be an entrepreneur. Hi, honey. And can I share about this when you were 10? I mean, I am. So here we go. And he would say, oh yeah, I really want to do that. And that would be it. And then nothing would happen. And this went on for like, I don't know, maybe a year, to the point where I was like, I feel betrayed because you're saying that you want to do this thing with me, but then there are no actions, right? And it was through work with a life coach who is also clairvoyant, which we can get into all of that. And I do more of that in my 12-week coaching program. We dive deep down, we go deep down the rabbit hole, as Josie has experienced a little bit of. And this woman came over, and we'd had, Barney and I had some work on us. Sarah, I think I told you that about our friend, the pet psychic. And she said to Derek, what happened when you were 10 years old? And Derek, hi, Maxine. And Derek, you want to jump in and share the rest of that? You're muted. And I want you to tell.
I just said you're doing a great job.
But it's your story.
Okay. Well, so when I was 10 years old, my dad got burned. And not like a little bit of burn, but like was in the hospital for 48 hours fighting for his life, and was in the burn center for 2 months. And we couldn't see him for 2 months. And we lived with my grandparents for 2 months. And that's sort of when it felt like things sort of changed in my family around money and having it, or, feeling like we had it. And I just remember, from that point on, I sort of remember like, wanting to, I'm, I don't know, 10, 12 years old, and I've got like a little girlfriend, and it's Valentine's Day, and we can't afford to get, I can't afford to get her a box of chocolates. And so, I decided I was never going to be in that situation. I was just never going to have to worry about money. So I really wanted to be an architect from the time that I was a little kid. It's just what I was meant to do. I used to draw floor plans, like house plans, for fun when I was, 7, 8 years old. And my dad told me that I would never make any money as an architect, which is actually not true. But I suppose if you're not a good architect, you may struggle with that. So I decided that I wasn't going to be an architect, and I decided I was going to be an accountant. And so that's what I did until I stopped being an accountant at 30, how old was I? 38, something like that. So that's what happened. At least that's what I've identified. Like, that's obviously one of the things that happened that sort of got maybe my story around money or security or taking care of myself. Like, that's the story that I formed around that.
I just want to point out, and this was not like, this was a blind spot. This wasn't like in his active awareness. And it also wouldn't have felt safe for you to be an entrepreneur, because your dad also had his own business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
my dad's always sort of been, I mean, since I was 3, I would say, or 2 even, had multiple businesses. So
you can see where we make these decisions that we don't even know that we're making. I mean, Derek's a young kid in this story. Like, he's not actively saying like, oh, can't have my own business, but he is, because he went like a very, very safe route. Like, so like didn't even go into the world of like home building or design or anything at all. Like, went so safe to the other side of like an accountant, right? That he would always be okay. So enter me. And I'm like, quit your job, come travel around the world. He's like, the little voice in him is like, yeah, that sounds great. And then the other part of him that's running his life would be like, are you kidding me? You'll die. You can't do that. Except that was all the inaction, but he didn't know that, right? And it's when we start to understand, oh, wow, I I saw something, right? Because usually it is something that usually happens in our childhood. And then we go and make decisions about life being a certain way. Like I have a client in my last coaching group who like, she's really decided that like, if you are in the food industry and in like baking and all of that, like you are not going to make as much money as a lawyer. And maybe, except like, you know, there are all these people like making a lot of money, like on Iron Chef and like all the, you know, like there, and there's evidence to prove the opposite. So it's really just what we're looking for. And so to answer the person's question of like, why do we set up roadblocks for ourselves, is that we mostly have no idea that we're doing it. It's just this old patterning. And so the way to get out of old patterning is, well, first of all, is like to work with a coach that can help you recognize like, oh, wow, like you're like the fact that I knew that I was like pushing up against the 12 o'clock time, you know, start. And I was like, oh yeah, I really do that. I really get off on that. Like, is that serving me? Right. And then you get to go and see if you want to if you want to do a different thing. Does that make sense? Like the first part is just recognizing that like, oh, wow, that thing that is a roadblock isn't actually true. We always have it that like, we don't have time and we don't have money, always. But haven't you always found a way to make the money or have the time when you really want something? Like we just do. I have people do it all day long with me. They're like, oh, I don't have the money. And then like, lo and behold, they'll just like pay for the whole damn thing, like right in 5 minutes. So it's about like getting past our old patterns of behavior and saying like, oh, that's actually not real. And if I do something different, I will not die. There is no huge fire or tiger chasing me, but like we're so fried. Like our nervous system is so incredibly fried because we're just getting information all day long that like we don't actually know that our roadblocks won't kill us. Does that make sense? Is that landing? Okay. Tammy, I want to jump in on what you sent me. Is that okay?
Sure.
You were okay if it wasn't anonymous. Some people want to be so. Yeah. Do you want to ask me a question or do you want me to read it?
Well, I have the ones that I wrote you, and then I also, now that you just said that, you know,
I was like, you might have something else to ask now.
yeah, I think my biggest problem is I don't get out of my own way. It's not someone else ever saying you can't. I have a husband who says do whatever, very supportive, but it's me, and I seem to make the wrong choices because some of the things that I've chosen have failed. And I'm like, and it could be a move. We moved to a certain house because I wanted it, right? Lightning hit it and burn it down. Okay, oopsie.
Seriously, that
Yeah, yeah.
what?
I moved
Wow, you don't hear
family.
about that a lot. That's
That was,
exciting.
that was before we met you guys.
Yeah.
But it was me who wanted to move. No one else wanted to move. So I said, no, this is a, you know, you need to be have horses.
Yeah, I would say
And
the
then
same.
within a year of building the house, yeah. So then I just go, okay, somebody else pick the next house. I'm out because clearly I make bad choices.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. You just coach. There it is.
See?
So good news. You've just made a decision called Tammy can't be trusted.
Pretty much.
And so you look at everything in your life and you're like, well, can't be trusted with this business. Can't be trusted to invest in my marriage. What else did you send me? Yeah, until you feel depleted. Yep. And so I just have to walk around feeling depleted because that's what I'm worth. And I absolutely am not somebody to be trusted. So then you don't trust yourself. So when somebody like me is like, listen to your little voice, you're like, I don't know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also my little voice has really messed up parts of my life. And I don't know that like your house burning down and being hit by lightning and all of that, like, was everybody safe?
Everybody was safe.
Okay. And the horses?
Everything was safe except for, well, what happened is 2 weeks after that, my dad passed away. So every memory that I had of him was gone. All my baby pictures of my kids were gone. All this stuff, we were in the middle of an adoption, I just went, wow, boy, I really messed things up. And that's with multiple things. I mean, that's just probably the biggest one, but I tend to do that.
So it's interesting because that's really the story that's running the show for you. And you could tell me your whole life and all of these things, and I wouldn't look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's perspective is unique, right? So what I would offer you is that, like, there's a lot of guilt and shame and anger, probably. This is an emotion that, like, we as women, it's all women on the call, yeah, like, we are really uncomfortable with, and, like, won't really let ourselves go there sometimes. Some do. That was an emotion that was really always hard for me and was, like, not modeled. And it was totally discouraged. It was, like, totally, like, shut down. But there's probably also a lot of anger that you have with yourself, right? About, like, all of these things that have ruined your situation or life. I mean, I don't want to say ruined your life. That's a bit dramatic. But, like, have not been right.
Right.
But you're also living in a world of, like, right and wrong. So there's that too. So what I would suggest is going and journaling. And this is almost always going to be my answer, guys. So, like, if you want to, spoiler alert, like, just buy a journal, get a good pen, like, you'll be journaling tomorrow morning. And you can actually just write down, like, oh, and then this time, and then this, and what did I say about myself? Right? Because until that part gets acknowledged, and until you really go and look at it and forgive yourself, I can give you suggestions on, like you said, you're struggling with your business and giving enough time to your 30-year marriage and not feeling like you have enough, and then you're depleted. Like, I could tell you that, but it won't make any difference, because you're depleted for a completely different reason. It has nothing to do with investing in your marriage. It has nothing to do with your business. You're depleted because you're tired of blaming yourself. And so if you can go and take a look at all of the things that you're blaming yourself for, and all of the things that you say about yourself, and then think of that self like you would your child who came to you and said, Mommy, I did all these bad things. And I want you to journal like you would as a parent to your child. Sound good?
Yeah.
So it's really about, like, that's just running the show. And the depletion and the exhaustion is really just, like, all of the years of that. And anybody could have made those same choices, Tammy. And you aren't doing a bad job, and you didn't do a bad job. And you aren't doing one now either. I don't think any one of your family members or friends or coworkers or anybody would hop on a call with me and say, oh yeah, Tammy, yeah, she's really right about what she said. No one's saying that. So I really want you to just look at yourself like a 5-year-old, just figuring this whole life thing out, just doing the best you can. And see if you do that for a week. So I want you to do, it's not like a one-hit wonder, right? So every day I journal 3 pages. Do you have a journal?
No.
Okay. So I will send you a link. I usually just get a Moleskine. There's a knockoff with some really great color selections. So I'll send you my favorite journal, my favorite pen choices. I've been doing this for 15 years. So, like, I'm a little picky about it, but that's just, it doesn't matter, but for me, it does. And I want you to journal. I would like to say for a month, but, like, let's start with a week, right? And I just want you to let yourself really go there. Like, I have written novels of self-loathing. And while not, I don't know that it's miserable, but it's kind of shocking. You're like, whoa, I think some real bad stuff about myself. Like I've even given it to Derek. I was like, if you want to know what's actually going on up here, like read this. It's so bad. But when you put it out on paper, it stops being inside of you. It gets to live somewhere else. And it starts to unravel the hook that's just running the show. Does that make sense? It might not yet, but it will. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to
Yeah.
give it a try.
I always think that if you, yep,
You always
if you
what?
have a counselor, like, or I always felt like journaling was kind of like a therapist, but only it doesn't cost you the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's what she always, because I did go to therapy shortly after that, and she's like, wow, you think you're really powerful. You're not that powerful. You're not thunder and lightning.
Well, and
So-
there's something, you know, I mean, the kind of energy part of me is like, I wonder what I would also, you might want to write this down or at least remember it, go back and listen. I'm also curious, like what needed to burn down for you? That's a really big thing to happen. And so I would just look at that from an energy standpoint and kind of like a, not mystic, but like you get what I mean, Josie, right? Like we've had, you know, like that like, that's a really big burning down of like all the things and like what, and I would ask the universe or God or whatever if you believe anything to be out there, let's say you do. And even if you don't, just play the game of like, if I did believe something was out there, what did you want me to learn from that? Like, why was it so dramatic? Why was it, what, you know, and just start the conversation of like, what did I learn there? You know, because I get it. Like that would be devastating. And also like, there's a part of me that's like, wow, that sounds like freedom. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for your question. That was great. All right. Okay. I am going to jump to something that Sarah actually said, unless you have something different you want to ask me, Sarah.
Which Sarah?
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
Oh.
With no,
Wait,
no,
which Sarah?
Sarah with no H, Sarah Villamaria.
Sorry, I didn't even realize there were two Sarahs. How cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, I don't know. I actually just, I really like the thing that you said about what was trying to burn down. So I'm kind of processing that for a second. I don't really know if I like, but I do want to talk about the questions that I had, I think. But I'm still processing what you just said to Tammy. So
Well, it's, I mean, that's a really dramatic thing to happen. Just like what Derek shared about like his dad, like he didn't share all of it. Like his dad was running to the house and he watched his father on fire and no one knew that Derek had seen this. So he also like lived with this like memory in his mind of like his father. And then he just like put it aside and worked really hard and like made money and did the safe thing. So, like, yeah, there are these really big things and we just like get through it, but our bodies don't always catch up with like what we're saying, I'm fine. And then you have a nervous breakdown, you know? So it's like, what's real? And so that's why I'm so passionate and so emphatic about journaling is because like I've been doing it for 15 years. There's no ending the mind. Like there's no stopping the train that we're on of like this just a lot of garbage, quite frankly. But when you keep with it, the universe starts to show up as like this really sweet best friend who's like, maybe we could do this together. And then you can see that like, maybe you're not alone out there, right? Like, even though we are, you know, all individuals and alone, but like when these accidents happen, like you would say something like, oh, you know, this like Sarah Villamarie, how you and I met, like she literally, like I bought a piece of jewelry from her sister, and then she messaged to me about like being a life coach. And I was like, you're 24, you can't be a life coach. You haven't had enough life. And why don't we get together and talk? And then like all this magic happened. That's not an accident. And we're quick to say that it's like, oh, so random. Or I'm like, no, that's not random. Like, that's just you doing the dance. And the minute you start doing the dance more with the universe, more magic shows up and more magic shows up. It's just energy, right? So that's why like the lens that we're looking at life through it's everything. That's all that there is. Because somebody would look at your situation, Tammy, and be like, wow, how great is that? You got like all this freedom and nothing to hold you back. And, you know, and then other people would be, you know, like in a mental institution, like it's all, you know, you could go either way on it. So, yeah, so that brings up your question, Sarah, of Villa Maria, of you messaged about how to deal with imposter syndrome and how do you channel confidence when you walk into a room. Okay, so I love this whole, like, imposter syndrome is talked about a lot. And I have, how do I want to say this? Imposter syndrome only exists when you think it's not safe to be you. And when you really get to a place of like love and acceptance with yourself, then there is no such thing as imposter syndrome. Because you're not trying to be anything that you're not. And you don't need the approval from others when you walk in that room. And you don't need to learn how to channel confidence because you're just being loving. And you're just enjoying the life that you're getting to live right now. And so it's only when we think that there's something wrong with us that we go to like this imposter syndrome, right? Like I can remember, you know, I lived in New York for all of my 20s. I left from 21 to 32. So I was in a lot of cocktail parties, a lot of walking into the room, a lot of channeling confidence. It was so fucking fake. Like I was so not confident. People would be like, oh, wow, Anna, you're so confident. And I would just smile and be like, like, and then go home and fall apart. So like I was the queen of the imposter syndrome, of faking it till you make it, of all of the things. And it did not make me happy. Not at all. Like it was really bad. And it wasn't until I let myself look at all of the pieces of me and say like, wow, like I've cheated on every boyfriend. I have a mountain of credit card debt. I am not good with money. Like I, you know, blow up friendships. Like I was like, let me just like look at all the bad stuff, because somewhere along the way, like I had to get responsible for my part in the life that I'd created that I needed to fake it all the time. And so again, it goes back to journaling, where like I just dump it and I'm like, you know what? Other people have done things like this. And this is just part of the human experience. And just because I haven't been good in relationships doesn't mean I can't learn how to be good in relationships. And just because I haven't, you know, been good with my money doesn't mean that I can't be. It only means that like I might have more to learn than other people, right? And so if you can put blinders on, and this is where in my 12-week coaching program, I think it's in the second or third week, it depends on how the group is. I literally have people clean out their closet and cut out social media, because so much of our lives feel like overwhelmed and cluttered because of other people's information that you somehow think is yours. Right? A big part of that is social media. I am the first to get on social media and be like, oh, another coach is doing the membership group that I want. I should just fucking quit right now. Like, I'm just going to go get in bed. Like, you know, Derek said to me the other night, he was like, why don't you just like go and relax and take a bath and just like scroll and just like have fun on your phone. I was like, you think that's fun for me? No, I will not be taking my phone to the bath. I will be lighting a candle and closing my eyes. Thank you very much. It's not safe for me to take a look out there because all I do is then I compare myself. And I get mad at myself for why didn't I do this coaching thing 15 years ago when I fucking wanted to? So my advice for you, Sarah, is to get those, Sarah, Bill, and Maria, and maybe Sarah, fun, maybe this will apply to, is to just get the blinders on, right? If you have to be on social media for, and social media is the quickest quicksand in this imposter syndrome, in my opinion, is just to get the blinders on. And if you have to post anything or do anything for work, like get in, do it, and get out. But when you are just scrolling, when you wake up in the morning and that is the first thing that hits your brain, rather than like your journal, you're just setting yourself up for a day where you're looking outward versus looking inward. And that's why when I teach people to journal, it is first thing in the morning. I used to say it's because later in the day, there's just a whole bunch of stuff to like dump out, but it's actually different. It's because you want to set the trajectory of your day to be an investment with yourself. To be like, I'm worth it that I invested this 30 minutes, this 45 minutes to get my thoughts out, to work my shit out so that I can show up for myself well. And that shifts everything versus like getting on a phone and looking at what other people are doing and wondering why you haven't gotten there too. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. Okay, Josie, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
I think I did, but I honestly just wrote the question because I was like, I want the
Oh
link.
my gosh, did I not get it? Hang on just a minute.
It wasn't a real question. It was just something random that I was like, let me just think of something, you know?
Yeah. Always think of something.
Yeah, you can disregard that, but there's
Well, I
been.
don't even have it, so you're good.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I kind of dealt with that yesterday.
What's it?
Go ahead. What did you say?
What do you want to ask?
I don't know. It's been so
Okay.
many good little nuggets, like, and I knew I just needed to be on the call because I'm like, whatever
Yeah.
shows up, you know.
Well, I've got more questions. So if you wanna raise your hand and when you think of something.
No,
Or-
I have something.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
But just not that question.
Okay, great.
A lot of little nuggets. Okay, so did you say that you met with somebody and they said you told them they were too young to be a life coach?
Yeah, Sarah, she's right next to you.
Okay.
I mean, she
Yeah.
could be, but I was like, I also just knew that that's not where she was at. I knew that, like, yeah. So, but also at 24, I'm like, you don't know shit. Sorry. That's just my personal opinion. I'm like, me trying to coach somebody at 24, fucking hang up the phone, people. Like, no, sorry. Maybe
like,
people can do it. That's not been my experience.
it's so good. So there's so many things. And it was like, so what I've been dealing with is like, I'm like, sometimes I want my life to have some kind of sense of normalcy. Like, I feel like everything, I know. And then I'm like, I'll be so bored.
You would be so fucking bored.
I would be. And then like, it's
Josie and I have done a few classes together. I'm like, that's not even close to true. You just think because your dad or your brother or your sister or whatever think that you should, and you're like trying to fit in. And like the people that are outliers, trust me, I am one. We think that we should want it to be normal. I do not want it to be normal.
Yeah.
And the only rub is thinking that you should fit in.
Right.
You're just not. That's not your path. There are other people that do. Cool. Good for them. But you want to know what? They need you.
Yeah.
They need you.
And what you just said to Sarah, it also offered me something too, because I've always known I wanted to be like, oh crap, shoot. Oh.
Phone dying?
No, somebody's FaceTiming me. I'm gonna call you right back. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. So I've always known I wanted to, like help or be a coach or very, very young, like you. And I'm so grateful because now that I look at it, I'm like, my life from that point, I mean, I don't even know what the hell I would have been telling people back in the day because all of the life experiences that I've had to this point, and I'm like, it just wasn't time. You know what I mean? And I think the original question I asked you, it was just like, what do you do in that in-between place?
You
that-
did. Yeah, Derek told me. Yeah.
Okay. And that's
Okay,
kind of,
so that's actually great. So what Josie had, that is a great question, and it does apply. So Josie had asked, like, what do you do in like the in-between when you're like maybe wrapping something up or like nothing's really happening?
Mhm.
And Josie, you and I have done the Artist Way together. I don't know if you'll remember this, but there's a section in it that I really love. And it's just so true. And if you look at the seasons, because I've been doing a lot of coaching around like the seasons of life, but specifically like autumn, winter, spring, and summer, there has to be rest.
Mhm.
And so oftentimes that in between that we are so resistant to because we're in a patriarchy that like, so I can say this, yeah, because it's all women on the call. Men are designed like a 24-hour cycle. Women are 25 to 28 days, right? Whether you have a menstrual cycle or you don't, like the moon cycle is similar, so you could use the moon cycle. We are not designed as the feminine to go in a 24-hour cycle. And there is nothing set up in our world because it's all been designed by men, which nothing wrong, it's just how it is. I don't know that I mean that actually. that felt like a complete lie. It's how it is, and there's something wrong. Our world isn't set up to support that. Our world is not set up to encourage the resting that we need, right? And yet we have winter, and yet bears hibernate. And because we have technology, and now everything is just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally everything at our fingertips, it's kind of terrifying because we are so out of sync with nature. We're so out of sync with our cycle, with the moon, with your menstrual cycle, if you have one, like we are so out of sync. And so what I highly, highly, highly recommend is to lean into the resting of the season that you're in. So I had a baby 16 months ago, and like the part of me that like wants to fit into certain clothes that I used to wear is like, oh, I'm going to intermittent and do all these things and work out. And like, I just stopped doing that. And I was like, I went through a lot with him. I was on bed rest, all this health stuff. And I was like, I really just think I need a long time to rest my body. And instead, I'm just going to do gentle yoga and I'm going to walk. And as I leaned into that, this coaching showed up. So it's when you allow yourself to rest. And this is what I would say for you, Tammy, as well, of like feeling depleted. Mm-hmm. Give yourself the grace and the time to like restore yourself. Because when we don't, bad things happen. We get really, really sick. We have nervous breakdowns, mental breakdowns. So, I mean, just bad things happen. Like our body can't sustain the cortisol levels, literally, of the constant go that we are doing to ourselves.
It's funny that you say that because remember, I couldn't do the retreat that I would have loved to have done with you because of all these health concerns, because I have been not sick like with a cold, but like my body literally is
chronic.
Sick, osteoporosis, and I had fallen and just couldn't heal. My body could not literally heal.
Right. Because there's a different kind of healing that you need. Mm-hmm. And as you heal what's been running the lens that you look at your life through, I believe that your body will heal too. A book that I would highly recommend, it is like I usually have it right here. I don't know who moved it. I probably did. Sometimes I clean things up and I have no idea where I put things, right? It's called You Can Heal Your Life, right, Josie? Yes. So I quit coaching the Artist Way because there's just so much more. And now I've incorporated You Can Heal Your Life into my Reconnect coaching program. Josie, you would love it. It gets real woo. We got way down into it. But it's called You Can Heal Your Life. It's by Louise Hay. And it's literally that like your thoughts form the dis-ease that you have in your body. So it will run through osteoporosis. And then there's a thought pattern that formed it. And there's an affirmation that you can start to incorporate into your life. It is like the Bible in our house. Like Derek will say something about like, Jack has pink eye. And he's like immediately looking up in the book, like, what is he not willing to see? Right. And accidents are a very interesting one. I have broken both my arms and my ankle a couple of times. And Louise Hay will say that there is no accident. It's literally you creating it, because like that is your self-value. And as much as I don't like what she has to say about that, when I've read it, because I've read it a lot of times, it's not inaccurate. So that would be an interesting book to take a look at.
Okay.
Right. Okay, Josie, did you have anything else?
No, I think no, we're good.
Okay. Well, I'm
Thank
going
you.
to answer a few more questions. And Maxine, I know that you are driving. If you want to hop in with a question, now is the time. Otherwise, I'm going to get to some of the questions that I was emailed. What do you think? Are you able to unmute yourself?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you have anything you want to ask, or do you want me to keep going?
I'm good. I'm just yeah, listening.
Okay, sounds
All right,
good.
cool.
I'm actually going to go to one. Yep, there it is. Hang on just a minute. Okay. I'm going to go to one that Maxine and I have talked about before. And that's, how do you overcome your negative self-talk and listen to your little voice? Because I think that that's really powerful for everybody on this call right now, and just for everybody always. I want to be clear about who your little voice is and who it's not. Your little voice is not any trash talk you do to yourself. It's not that little voice that says like, you can't do this. Who do you think you are? It's too late. You're too old. You're too stupid. You're too young, whatever. It's not that. Do you guys know the little voice that I'm talking about? Okay. So the little voice is the little voice that told me 20 years ago, stop drinking. The little voice is the same voice that told me, marry him. Right? And it's also the same little voice that said to move back to my hometown. And I literally fell apart crying and was like, I cannot do that. I will die. And the little voice was like, well, you asked, because I've been asking the universe, where would you have me live? And then the universe was like, right here. And I was like, I don't like that answer. And the universe is like, hey, no problem, but you asked. So that's the deal. We say that we want to know. We say that we want our life to be easy. We say that we want it to be in alignment and in a, harmony with the universe. Except if we don't like what it says, right? Like, quit that job. It's making you sick. Get a divorce. It's not working. I'm not saying any of this to you guys. I'm just saying this in general. The deal with the little voice is when you hear it, if you do not take action, it doesn't speak up much. That's why I believe so passionately in journaling, because when you write 3 pages, I'm not talking about like 1 page of fucking 5-minute gratitude journal. Like that's gonna cut it, guys. That's just, I'm sorry, it's not. I've been doing this too long to know that that's 100% accurate. The more you do the dance with the little voice and let yourself listen, the easier it becomes and the louder the voice gets. It's the voice that's like, I literally decided on Monday to have this coaching call because my little voice was like, just help people, right? Just relax. just get on a call and like help people. So it's about like when you, like Sarah, I didn't want to meet Sarah Villamaria. And Sarah, you too, actually, Sarah Fun. I'll tell a story about both of you. Sarah Villamaria sent me this email and she was like, I'd really like to meet with you and talk to you about your career. And I was like, girl, no, I don't have time. I have 2 kids. I have 2 businesses. I do not have time for that. And then my hands were writing like, yes, what time would you like to meet? I'd love to have coffee. That was that little voice. I was like, and that little voice was like, help her. Wouldn't you want somebody to help you when you were a hot mess at 24? And I was like, oh yeah, I would really have loved that. That would have been so great, right? So that's a little voice. Even though I didn't feel like I had the time, I was listening and I'm willing to do the things that the little voice tell me to do, like coach. This is largely inconvenient when I look at like things in my life, and yet it's like breathing to me. It feels so good. And yeah, it's a lot of work sometimes, you know, but the payoff is huge because I get to feel like me and I get to help other people feel like themselves. So that negative self-talk doesn't have space when the little voice gets louder. And that's what I wanted to share with you, Maxine, like that, it just can't, you can't have 2 thoughts at the same time. So if you're listening to your little voice, when that negative self-talk shows up, like it shows up for me all the time, then the little voice is like, just call Sarah. So that was you, Sarah Alexander. I was totally bumping up against stuff this morning and was like, I just want to talk to somebody who loves me. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah Alexander, like, why have I not talked to her in forever? And then here we are, right? So it's about like doing the dance together and recognizing that like you have every part, you have every much, okay. You run like hell to catch the bus and you hope that the bus is coming. So that's your dance with the universe, right? But the universe is not some fucking lottery that you just like went and paid $1 for, and then it gives you the jackpot of $500 million or whatever the jackpot is. It's about the small incremental steps. And then people are like, oh my gosh, she, you know, did all of this stuff. And you're like, yeah, because that she's been doing it for 20 years, 15 years, whatever, right? And that voice, that is like guiding a person's life. When you see somebody like, I use him a lot as an example, but Matthew McConaughey. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. When he shows up, man, enthusiasm shows up, right? Like, isn't that guy just having a great time? And enthos, if you look at the actual root of the word, it means to dance with God. So I'm going to loop back to you, Tammy, because you'd said like, you know, that you feel all of that. As you show up with enthusiasm, marriage, no problem, business, no problem, right? When I am pissed off doing the dishes, I'm like, well, this isn't going to have anything magical happen in my day. So what I do is either ask Derek to get involved with me, put on a fun song, get silly in the kitchen with the boys, and we all put the dishes together, you know, away together. But like, I have to turn it around because I want enthusiasm in my house, because when I have enthusiasm, all the pieces of my life work. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I want to dive into something that somebody asked me, which is really, really, really good. This person says, you know, I hate talking about myself. And that's one reason why I didn't have a wedding, which is, that makes me not happy, but okay. I didn't want to be the center of attention, but at the same time, I want people to quietly and secretly acknowledge me. Anyone relate to that? Like, you don't want to be the center of attention, but you do want everybody to know all that you've done and acknowledge you for it. That is really, really hard for other people, right? Mm-hmm. because then you're like expecting them to be a detective
Mind
when they're,
readers.
wait, what? What'd you say, Tammy?
Mind readers.
Mind readers, right? Like, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship, like, I mean, just never gonna happen,
Yeah.
right? Like, never gonna happen. Like, women and women, I feel like that you've got a better chance there, right? But maybe not, I don't know. But so I would be very, very, very interested, and this would be a journal prompt, to this person. There was something that collapsed around, like, being the center of attention is bad, right? Given like everything that we've talked about today on the call, like what Derek had shared about, his father, and Tammy about your house burning down, you're certainly not safe to make decisions. There's something for this client, like, around being the center of attention is not good, is absolutely not safe. And yet that you want everybody to know what a great job you've done. And you want that acknowledgement, shows that, like, this hiding out really isn't serving you and does not feel good. But it's old familiar patterning, and it's really, really, really comfortable. And the only way that we really have change happen is when you finally get so fed up, or you get sick, or you get bankrupt, or, like, usually it takes something very bad for us to, like, then go and make a change. A lot of times it's sick, unfortunately. So I would say get a journal, right? And start asking yourself, what happened that made me think it's not okay to be seen? Like, why is that not safe? Because there are a lot of people that are, very famous, very seen. I'm not saying that that makes them happy, but, like, it hasn't killed them. They're still alive. And it's only that, like, it's only our guilt and shame, embarrassment maybe, that has us think that being seen isn't safe. And there's something along the path to unravel, right? And I would do the same thing of, like, looking at that little child, like you are a parent, like you are somebody that, like, I have I posted a video yesterday with my client, Courtney. She has 5 dogs. She's like 5 Frenchies. Like, she is the best dog mom in the whole entire world. Like, I would have her talk to her dogs like, she would, like, talk to herself like she would her sweet puppies, right? So do that, because hiding out, it's I really think it kills people. So one of my teachers says, you're only as sick as your secrets. You're only as sick as your secrets. So again, I'll go back to, like, that Louise Hay. If you've got anything going on physically, it's called You Can Heal Your Life. It's a spinoff of You Can Heal Your Body. I think it does a better job, and it goes into a little bit more detail. And the real thing, this leads me into a little different direction, is if we are unwilling to let ourselves be seen, like the light and the darkness, it also doesn't allow you to live a really, 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 like, on fire, lit up Matthew McConaughey walking into a room having a great fucking time everywhere he goes. So if you have a pendulum swinging in a clock, just the law of energy, it can only go as high as it's willing to go low, right? So when I am, like, I had a really big breakdown on Monday. It was 9/11, and I just have, like, undealt feelings about it, having gone through it, and I really, like, didn't deal with it when I lived through it. And so when 9/11 happens, I get really messy. but I let myself get messy because I also know that on the other side of a breakdown is a breakthrough, right? So just like that rainbow after the rain, like you have to be willing to look at the mess, right? To look at the darkness, because it's only with darkness that we can see light. And yet culturally, we have it that the darkness is bad. And the darkness really does serve us because it allows us to see the light. So I would always say to allow yourself to feel the feelings, because you're going to feel them eventually. And if you give yourself the space to just feel what you're feeling, it goes much faster. Like I didn't have to stay in my breakdown for, a long time on Monday. I just gave myself the rest of the day. I was like, I'm going to cuddle with my kids and work can wait. And I'm just going to be with my family and like treasure them, because so many people don't get to do that anymore after that day. And I'm not going to feel bad about it. And I'm not going to feel bad that it's been 22 years and I'm still a mess about it. Right? I just like let myself have those feelings. And I know that that's what it's like to be human. And if I'm walking around like it's good all the time, that's a fucking fraud. Like it's just not. And we're not designed to have it be good all the time. It would be so boring, right? It's like trying to fit in, Josie. Like so boring. Okay. I do want to answer one more question and I know it's 1:04. If you guys have another minute, because I do think that like this is gonna be helpful. Okay. One of my daughter's good friends has parents that we just don't particularly like, which isn't a big deal, except that every time they bring their kid over to visit, they end up staying for an unreasonable period of time, like hours. This just makes me freak out when I hear this. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? We obviously don't do that when our daughter goes to their house, and then this person had a nightmare about it. They don't seem to be worried about leaving her with us, because they eventually do, but they consistently overstay. Any ideas on how to make that stop? Such a good question, right? Because I know like as a new-ish parent, like there are just people that, I don't want them coming over with their kid. I'm like, you can drop your kid off here, but like, you don't also need to be here, right? Just because we have kids that like each other doesn't mean that we need to, right? Do that together. So this would be one of those scenarios of like boundaries. And what I would say to this person is, why do you think that they do that? And they do that because you let them. And why are you letting them? So again, great journaling opportunity, because there could be a lot to unpack there, because it sounds like some people pleasing, like it sounds like all people pleasing, right? Like this person thinks that like it's somehow not okay to say like, actually got dinner, something going on. And that if you say the truth, which is like, I actually, you don't need to say that you don't like them. That's not what I'm suggesting. But that you allow that to happen is what I would be very interested in and would go and take to the pages, because people only treat you the way you let them. So if somebody comes to your house and overstays for several hours, I'm like, why did you let that happen? And what do you make it mean if you create a boundary? Right? So, I just had somebody say to me at a PTO meeting that like, their kids are friends, and she's really tried to be friends with the parents, and like it's just not. It's a no. And I have had a similar situation with this parent. I was like, oh yeah, well, they're just not interested. And she was like, oh, wait a minute. You've tried too. And I was like, oh yeah, they don't want to be friends with me. That's no problem. She was like, wait, they don't want to be friends with you either. I was like, oh, absolutely not. I got the memo on that right away. Like it's no, and it's cool because like I don't need to, I have plenty to do. Like I'm not looking for like them to be friends with me to validate me. And our kids can be friends without us being friends. Like Jack is 4. He's going to have all kinds of opinions that like I don't have, right? He's 4. He's a boy. I mean, he's like, you know, trashing the library yesterday. So when we look inside and aren't like it, you know, I said with Sarah Villamaria about like the outward looking on like Instagram and all of that. As we look inside, we don't need outside validation, right? And so to this person that had this happen, I would be very clear, like, I would love to have you bring your daughter over. I just want you to know that I don't have time to connect today. So if you want to drop her off, like, you know, that's really great, but like, I'm actually going to be on a call, or just make yourself unavailable, right? I oftentimes will, like our landlord was over not long ago. And like, he talks way too much. I want nothing, like he's lovely, but like, he just talks too much. And so when he's around, like I'm locked in the office. Like I do not come out of my office. I don't care if I have to go to the bathroom. Like I'll sit in here before he like, you know, I will not come out before he leaves. And Derek is always like, how come I'm always stuck, you know, talking to the guy? And I was like, well, because like you do that and I'm not willing to. And he, you know, he has a little more people pleasing maybe than I do. Maybe I should, I don't know. So yeah, I think the point of all of that is that not everybody needs to be your friend. Like, it's kind of like what we were talking about, Josie, about like, you don't really want to fit in. I completely don't fit in. There are people all the time that I'm like, oh, I really wish I were part of that group. And then I think about it, I'm like, no, I don't actually, you know, at this phase of my life, like, I love being with you guys and I love my friends, and like, I don't need them to be up my butt all the time. Like I've got 2 kids up there. So, right. So it's really just about like being really good with yourself. And that's why I'm going to go back to it. Like, that's why I journal, is because I get to have like a really deep friendship with myself and with the universe. And I know that like, even though I'm having this life experience, like there's something conspiring in my favor. There's a universe that like made this all of this. I'm looking outside right now and they're like trees and they're all different shades of green. And at no point were they ever like, I'm sorry, I'm too green. I really shouldn't be this green. Or like, I know you're green, but like maybe I could be a little bit green, or like this leaf is bigger. You know, the sky wasn't like, I'm sorry, I'm so blue. I know there's the ocean, like that, you know, like we can all just exist and appreciate one another. And so I think if we can just get those blinders on and dive into our internal work, then everybody around us, well, man, you're just attracted to a person like that, right? Because you don't need other people to validate you. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was really fun. Sarah, I didn't hear from you, but that's okay. I love you. I love your jumper. Sarah's in England right now, so I'm very jealous of the weather. Mhm.
You're not.
I know, which is crazy because you're like, why?
No, it's grey outside, but then it is quite dark. So yeah, dark grey.
Okay.
Cold.
I love you all. Thank you for joining. I'm going to post the recording. I'll put it on my YouTube channel. So, so this will be on the YouTube channel if you ever need to watch it again. And just a quick reminder that I have early bird pricing for the Reconnect, which is a whole lot more of this, but a whole lot deeper. And I take you through journaling, and it's 12 weeks. And I just want to say why it's 12 weeks, because I want you to quit a lot, because it's in the quitting that I'm there and I like pick you up and put you back together. And I'm like, okay, we're going to keep going. And if you quit a few times, what happens when I'm not with you is then you'll know how to pick yourself back up, right? And so it's 3 months of coaching with me, and then it's another 3 months in my membership group. So it's actually 6 months of coaching, but the first 3, it's going to take us right up until the holidays. So imagine going into the holidays feeling great, and like you. And maybe you need some help on the boundaries, right? I think about that with the holidays. I was looking at the schedule for this and I was like, oh yeah, that's gonna work out just great. Everyone's gonna need that, myself included. So anyway, so that's open right now. And you get a free coaching session with me. I still have a few spots. If you sign up soon, then you get that. So just so you know. All right. I love you guys.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.